Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for choosing our channel and for watching our videos. As always, if you want us to grow together, the best support that you can render to our channel is to subscribe, click the notification bell. Also like this particular video. When you do that, the video will be recommended to many more people and you will be supporting the channel. To all those who support us, our subscribers, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, William Samoei Ruto's character, or something that I call bad manners, has attracted the eye of our neighbors. What am I talking about? Of late, you have seen William Ruto threatening the judiciary, telling the courts that he will no longer abide by their rulings because he says that the rulings are meant to sabotage his two main agendas. One, the NHIF that he believes is supposed to provide medical cover, especially to the hustlers, the have-nots in the society. And the other one is the housing levy that he says is supposed to be giving jobs to the same hustlers. In fact, he says ever since he started the idea of the housing levy, he has provided over 150,000 youths with those jobs. And I'm wondering, temporary jobs or permanent jobs? When he made those statements and he warned the judges, and of course you even saw the other day, the judges ruled in favor of him, extending the collection of the housing levy to 26th. Today is 11th. So he's got about some 2 or 3 more weeks to collect this money. Yet it had been found to be illegal and very discriminatory. After those statements, the Law Society of Kenya came out with guns blazing, fuming with fury, and condemned William Samoei Ruto. In fact, I think there is a demonstration that has been organized to express displeasure about William Ruto's statements, because it didn't end there. He also threatened people with a sword. You can imagine a sword that he was given to defend us against external, mayhem from the other countries. The opposition aired their voice, judges and lawyers. But today, a group calling itself the East African Magistrates and Judges Association aired their voice. It seems they had been watching very closely what is happening in Kenya. Because if the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces, the person who swore and took an oath to defend our constitution, is the one mutilating it, because when you say that you will not obey court rulings, you are simply mutilating the constitution that you say you will obey. So these people aired their voice, and this is what I want us to look at. The East African Magistrates and Judges Association, EAMJA, has backed Kenyan judges and magistrates who called out President William Ruto over his onslaught on the judiciary. The EAMJA president, this president is called Keitirima Eudes, noted that the government ought to have used legal channels to address its concerns. Quoting the president of the East African Magistrates and Judges Association, this is what he said. The East African Magistrates and Judges Association underscores the significance of addressing any grievances against judicial officers or their decisions within the acceptable framework. Any concerns or disputes must be handled through established legal channels, respecting the principles of due process and the separation of powers. It was a long statement, but basically they were concerned that if the president feels that some judges are corrupt, he knows what to do. There's always a committee that is formed to look at the conduct of the judge, like it happened with Judge Chitembwe, and the president is the one who is in charge. He's the one who will obviously after the process has been initiated and is convinced that he should now appoint some people to look into the conduct of the judges, they will give him a report, and based on that, he can either decide that these judges are going home. So the neighbors are watching how we conduct our affairs, and they are concerned because, you know, Kenya has been a giant in East Africa. You remember before Uhuru Kenyatta left, he left us at a very respectable position, both economically. Our shillings was doing well compared to the Ugandan shillings and the Tanzanian shillings. In terms of politics, our democracy, even though people are being butchered on the streets, but compared to the other countries, at least we can say that we are better socially and all that. But you know, ever since William Ruto got into office, we are losing that respect. You've seen how the neighbors are mocking us. You have seen how we have really built enmity with Congo. They withdrew their ambassador to Nairobi. Sudan did the same. Uganda has taken us to court. Madame Sulu is telling us that we speak a lot of English in darkness, because we have a lot of rampant blackouts in our international airport. So people look at us and they see how William Ruto is dining with the international community, the West. He does not want to protect our culture. He accepts LGBTQ. When Uganda has stood firm and they are suffering the consequences, the other day, the USA removed them from AGOA, African Growth Opportunity, a trade bloc that allows Kenya and America to trade with some privileges. So they have seen William Ruto, and they have said that William Ruto must defend the law, must act within the presence of the law and our constitution. Let me remind you that Kenya has been exposed because the other day, after the Supreme Court ruling, Martha Karua went for further interpretation in the East African Court in Arusha. And she wanted the courts to understand whether the non-judicial language that were the languages that were used by Madam Koome, like hot air, wild goose chase, and all those kind, were proper in a setting that is so precarious, such as the Kenyan presidential case. So with all this, Kenya stands a place, and you know, very many countries wants to read what we do. Remember, Kenya is also the first African state where a presidential case, a presidential result, has been nullified. In fact, it caused a storm in the whole country. In fact, let me say the whole world. It was the first of its kind. And very many people were wondering what kind of heart Maraga had to face a presidential. You see, Uhuru was the president. He was a sitting president already defending his seat. And then Maraga looks at him and tells him the election has been conducted in a manner that does not merit the standards as established by law. And the neighboring countries, you know, have been reading and emulating what we do. Kenya has been at a stage where whenever there is an altercation, political strife anywhere, the president of Kenya would be entrusted with the negotiating for peace. That is why after Uhuru retired, he was appointed to head a peace mission in Congo. But William Ruto has lost the stature of a peacemaker. You cannot be a peacemaker when you are intimidating your people with the sword. You see, if that was happening in the Western countries, William Ruto would have resigned. The sword is a symbol of authority, and you're supposed to protect our country against external aggression. Yet you use it to threaten your people. The three arms of government must be fully autonomous. There is no way the executive is going to intimidate parliament and intimidating the judiciary. This is so important because when people are aggrieved, the only place they run to is the court to interpret what is happening. When courts are threatened and they have coiled their tails, we are doomed. Whatever is happening in Kenya is contagious. They know very well that if Kenya slips, not only East Africa, but the whole of Africa will also fall. Let me tell you why. When Kenya came up with this kind of arrangement of a handshake government or a coalition government like the one that happened in 2007 between Raila Amolo Odinga and Mwai Kibaki, you saw Raila being called in Zimbabwe, where the late president of Zimbabwe and Morgan Tsvangirai, Robert Mugabe and I think Morgan Tsvangirai, had the same kind of political war between them and fight and altercation, and Raila was called to go and give a blueprint on how they could work together. And at some point I heard Raila complaining that we set a precedent where other leaders would rig elections, and when push comes to shove, then they say, let us share power. So this tells you that whatever is happening in Kenya is being emulated in the other country. And this is why the East African Magistrates and Judges Association condemned Ruto's threats to the judiciary, because an injustice to a judiciary in one of the East African countries is an injustice to the judiciary in the other countries. Even though, if you ask me, these judiciaries are never independent at all. Even if you look at Uganda, I don't believe that once Museveni has been declared a president, you can take him to court and win that case. It cannot. You can't do that to Madam Suluhu. You saw what was happening. Even in Congo, they have declared Felix Tshisekedi. You saw what happened in Nigeria. All these are always in the pockets of the judiciary, of the executive. But then, we should not allow the executive arm to start threatening. I want to complete by saying this. You know, William Ruto's unity call has been put to test. He's saying that he wants to try and achieve peace in Sudan, yet they are accusing him of being partisan. Our soldiers were rejected in Congo. No one wants to accept William Ruto because he's non-partisan. The other day, he embraced a rebel camp that was that conducted their business in Nairobi. So he cannot talk about peace. I wonder how he still insists that he wants to go to Haiti. To do what? When back at home, things are in a quagmire. The international community is very quiet. Meg Whitman is not talking when their boy is threatening the judiciary. Why? Because he's their boy, as I've said. Meg Whitman is the headmistress in our school called Kenya, in this college. She's the one pulling the shots. William Ruto is just but a conduit. When they want GMO, Ruto, make sure that you sell our seed corporation so that you can implement. When they want the LGBTQ, make sure you use the same judiciary to accept it. A lesson to Madam Koome. You cannot dine with a hyena, because you all know the story that once upon a time a hyena stole some goats in a village, and as the villagers were chasing the hyena, a farmer rescued the hyena and hid it. And when all the villagers had passed and gone, the hyena told the farmer, I feel like drinking the blood of a human being, and since you're the only one who's here, I will start with you. And the hyena devoured the farmer. A good lesson to Madam Koome. You helped William Ruto ascend to power, and now he has turned against you. People will condemn it, the Law Society of Kenya, the opposition, judges, East African Magistrates and Judges Association, but you are the author, you are your own maker of your predicaments. Kenyans cried out to you. You told us that we were chasing. It was a wild goose chase. It was hot air. Sometimes I think that when you complain about William Ruto, we should tell you that your complaints are hot air. We should tell you that yours is a wild goose chase against an executive that you supported. But again, we cannot allow ourselves to slip into the dark days, because once they are done with the judiciary, the next will be you and I. And so we should rise up against this oppression, against the threats and onslaughts. I don't know what you think, but that's my take.